The galaxy was silent, but not in peace. War was close. Like a storm ready to break. For months, humans and the Ulari Empire had argued, shouted, and blamed each other. Both sides had fleets in space, waiting, aiming, not firing yet, Captain. Rian stood on the edge of Ulari territory, inside a shining silver station called Zervail. The Ulari had built it in the shape of a flower, wide and tall, floating near a red star. He wore his simple Earth uniform. No armor, no weapons. Just a datapad in his hand, and calm in his eyes. He was alone, the only human invited. Behind him was empty space, and in front an empire that thought humans were nothing more than animals with tech. Inside the main council room, alien voices echoed. Tall figures with glowing skin and long robes stood around a crystal table. At the center was Veyra, the most arrogant diplomat in Ulari history. She was powerful, beautiful, and proud maybe. Too proud. When Rian stepped in, she didn't stand. Instead, she laughed. So this is the famous human negotiator Earth sent. Her voice was sharp like cold wind. Do you speak, or just stand and look confused? Rian didn't react. He walked forward and placed his datapad on the table. Captain Rian Solas of Earth's Defense Command, he said calmly, I'm here to talk about peace. The Ulari whispered among themselves, clicking their tongues and shaking their heads. Veyra stood slowly, her eyes shining blue, full of mockery. Peace. From a species that throws metal at every problem. You think you can stand here and act like a leader? Rian's voice stayed quiet. No, not a leader, just someone tired of funerals. For a moment, the room fell silent, but then Veyra smiled. Cruel smile. She walked toward him, circling him like a predator. I've read about humans, she said. Impulsive, emotional, weak-minded, but strangely stubborn. She stopped close to his face. Do you really think we will kneel to your little planet? Rian looked at her, steady and sure. No, he said. I think you'll learn that we don't kneel either. The room shook slightly, but not from sound, from tension. The Ulari were shocked. No one talked back to Veyra like that, but she laughed again, this time softer, more curious than cruel. Interesting, she whispered. Very well, human. Let's talk. They moved to a smaller chamber, more private. Away from the watching eyes of the council, Veyra poured dark blue wine into thin glass cups. Drink, she said, sitting on a floating chair made of light. Rian took the drink, but didn't sip it. You came a long way for words, she said, stretching her arms lazily. Or did you come for something else? Rian raised an eyebrow. I came to stop a war, but not with kindness, she said, her tone teasing. You came with silence, calm words, and that look in your eyes. She leaned forward. Tell me, human, what do you really want? For a second, Rian stayed quiet. Then he gave a small smile. The kind that hides something deeper. I want you to understand something, he said. We may not be as advanced as the Ulari, but we don't lose easily. And we never forget, Veyra's smile faded a little. She stared at him, searching his face. Then she laughed again. But this time it sounded less sure. You think you can frighten me with your talk? No, Rian said. I'm not here to frighten you. I'm here to give you a choice. Veyra raised an eyebrow. Curious now. Go on, she said, slowly sipping her wine. We can be enemies and destroy each other, or we can find a way to avoid war. You think peace will come from this room? No, Rian said, but it can start here. There was a long pause, and Veyra stood, her face unreadable. Very well, she said. Stay on this station for 3 days. We'll continue this talk. Then she turned and walked out, but not before giving him a final look. One filled with hidden thoughts. Rian was left alone. Standing by the crystal table, he didn't show it but inside. He knew this mission was just beginning, and The real game had already started the moment he walked through that door. He didn't come here only for peace. He came with a second plan, a personal one, a secret one, and Veyra had no idea what was coming. The station lights dimmed as the artificial night cycle began. Soft blue glows lit the halls of Zervale like moonlight. Captain Rian walked alone, his boots quiet against the crystal floor. He had been given a guest chamber wide, clean, and filled with strange Ulari artwork. But Rian wasn't interested in sleep. Not yet. A message blinked on the wall screen. Private invitation. Chamber 7C. Veyra. He stared at it for a few seconds, then smiled. To himself, she didn't waste time. Rian followed the curved halls until he reached the chamber. Guards stood outside but did not stop him. The door slid open, and the scent of sweet spice filled the air. Inside, the room was warm and soft, with cushions, floating lights, and a table full of food, and at the center Veyra, sitting like a queen, wearing a thin, flowing robe of silver threads. "You came," she said, her voice smooth like silk. "You didn't think I would refuse, did you?" Rian replied calmly. She tilted her head, amused. Most human males would be too nervous. "Maybe I'm not like most," he said, and walked toward the table. She poured 2 glasses of blue wine, handed one to him. "To peace," she said. With a smirk, Rian lifted his glass. To understanding, they drank. Watching each other with careful eyes, Veyra leaned forward. "Tell me, Rian, why did Earth really send you?" "You're not just a negotiator." Rian didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for a small piece of Ulari fruit and took a slow bite. "You enjoy control," he said simply. Veyra's smile deepened. "Of course, doesn't everyone?" "Not everyone uses it the same way," he said, meeting her gaze. "Some use control to hide fear." Her eyes narrowed. The playful tone in her voice paused for just a breath. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" "I think you're afraid of what I represent," he said softly, "a species that refuses to bow. Even to empires older than their history books." She laughed again, but this time it felt thinner. "You think one night of talk will change my views?" "No," he said, finishing his drink. "But one night can change everything." She looked at him carefully now, the way a hunter looks at something unexpected. Then she stood and walked slowly toward him. "You're clever for a human," she said. "You know how to speak, how to push, how to tempt. I learned from the best." He replied with a small smirk. "Aliens like you." She was close now, very close. She reached up and touched the edge of his collar. "Then maybe you'll learn something more tonight," she whispered. "Something personal." Rian didn't stop her. Not because he wanted her, but because the trap was already closing. He didn't come here only for peace, or even for revenge. He came to make sure she would never forget him. To mark her pride in a way no Ulari diplomat had ever experienced. The Ulari believed they were untouchable, that no outsider could ever stain their bloodline. But tonight, that belief would be broken. Later, when the candles dimmed and Veyra lay wrapped in silk sheets, Rian stood near the window. He stared out at the stars. "Face calm, heart steady," she whispered from the bed. "You're quiet now." He turned to her, just thinking about Earth, still homesick. She asked, half asleep. "No," he said. "I think I've done what I came to do." She didn't understand the meaning in his words. Not yet. She thought this was just another night. A game, a curiosity, but Rian knew better. He had studied Ulari law, their biology, their honor rules, and he knew the one thing that would hit them harder than any weapon. She would discover it in time, and when she did, the war would no longer be about fleets or fire. It would become personal. Rian left quietly before dawn. No goodbye, no message, no trace, just the memory and the seed of his plan already growing. As he walked back through the glowing halls, a thought crossed his mind. They sent me here as a diplomat, he thought. But I may return as a legend or a warning. Either way, Veyra would never forget him. And soon, neither would the galaxy. 3 weeks passed, and the stars kept moving as if nothing had changed. But something had, something small, quiet, and hidden deep inside the body of a proud alien diplomat. Veyra stood before a glowing mirror in her private quarters. Her sharp eyes studied her face, her body, her skin. But today, something felt off. She felt slower, more tired, and a strange warmth pulsed in her core. A private medical scan blinked on the wall beside her. The results appeared in Ulari script, flashing once then again to confirm. She read them twice, her breath caught. In her throat, pregnant, hybrid, father, human DNA identified. Her knees nearly gave out. She grabbed the side of the wall, staring at the words in silence. Her heart, which was always cold and controlled, now beat wildly. Her face turned pale. Her thoughts scattered. How? She whispered. That night, it wasn't supposed to. No. Panic turned to rage, and rage turned to fire. She stormed into the High Council Hall. Unannounced, uninvited, the Ulari leaders tall, elegant beings with crystal horns and robes. Of light turned in surprise, Veyra, one said. You were not scheduled. Forget the schedule, she snapped. We have a crisis. She threw the scan results onto the table, the data projected into the air. The room went silent. No one spoke, no one moved. After a long pause, one elder leaned forward. A child, he said slowly. Not just a child, Veyra hissed. A hybrid. The room shook with whispers. Crossbreeding between humans and Ulari was Rian never accepted. It was considered shameful, a stain on bloodlines that had been pure for millennia. Another elder said softly, Who is the father? Veyra's lips tightened. She didn't want to say it, but she had no choice. Captain Rian of Earth. Gasps echoed across the room, the same human who stood before them weeks ago. Calm and clever. The same man she had tried to control had. Thought she did control. One elder stood, his voice full of anger. This is an insult. A human has planted a child inside one of our highest diplomats. Another said, This was no accident. This was a plan. A strike not with weapons, but with disgrace. Veyra clenched her fists. Yes, she said. He did this to humiliate me. To humiliate us. The council erupted into chaos. Some called for war. Others demanded the child be destroyed. Some even said Veyra should be punished for her carelessness. The shame was heavy, choking. But then the room darkened as a new voice entered. A hologram shimmered in the center of the Table Earth's ambassador. General Sale. He had been listening, watching, and now he spoke. My friends, he began, voice calm. Let us not rush. The Ulari Council speaks of shame, but perhaps we should talk of truth. He waved his hand, and a video began to play. It showed Veyra's own words from the night she invited Rian. Her laughter, her flirting, her teasing words, her full control of the situation. It ended with her saying, You'll learn something personal tonight. The council stared in silence. It was clear this was not manipulation, not forced. Veyra had invited him, welcomed him, and enjoyed every moment. General Sale spoke again. You say he used her, but did she not also use him? Are we now punishing choice because we don't like the result? Veyra's face turned red with fury and shame. Her plan to blame Rian had failed. Now the galaxy would know she had lost control, not just of a treaty, but of herself. The council ended the session without agreement. But whispers spread like wildfire through Ulari space. Across colonies and news channels, Veyra, pregnant by a human, Ulari bloodline, tainted. The first hybrid child of two enemies. Meanwhile, Rian sat in a quiet chamber back on Earth. He sipped tea, reading the news report with a neutral face. His mission had worked without weapons, without war. He had cracked the pride of an empire. But his eyes weren't proud. They were focused, serious. Because he knew this wasn't over, Veyra would come for him. Not just because of what he did, but because now something was growing inside her. Something she couldn't ignore. A child with human blood. A child that could change the galaxy, and Rian knew. The real war was just beginning. Veyra stared at the news broadcast, her hands shaking. Every screen in the capital world of the Ulari Empire now showed her face, not as a proud diplomat, not as a leader, but as a scandal, a shame, a joke. The headlines burned into her mind. Ulari diplomat pregnant with human child. Was it revenge, romance, or recklessness? The fall of Veyra captured by her own pride, she smashed the screen with her fist. Glass and sparks flying. Her guards rushed in, but she waved them away. Her breath was heavy, and her voice full of fire. "Leave me," she said, "all of you." When the room was empty, she stood alone in the shattered silence. She touched her stomach, where the child was slowly growing. A mix of two species, a mix she had never planned, never wanted. But the worst part was, she couldn't stop thinking about him. That human Rian, his calm face, his cold eyes. The way he spoke. He hadn't forced her. He hadn't begged her. He had simply let her walk into her own trap. And now, the whole galaxy knew. She had lost everything. Her seat in the council was taken. Her name was under investigation. Her family name, once honored, was now whispered with shame. But Veyra was not the kind to cry. She was not weak. She would not let this end her story. She opened a private channel, encrypted and off record. A small circle of faces appeared: mercenaries, spies, loyalists. "I want him," she said, voice sharp as a blade. "Alive or dead?" One asked. Veyra's eyes narrowed. "Alive." For now, but broken, the bounty was sent out secretly, across 10 systems. Hidden under layers of fake contracts, but every professional in the dark zones knew the truth. A powerful Ulari wanted one human captured, no questions asked. Meanwhile, far from Ulari's space, Rian walked through a peaceful Earth colony. Children laughed, traders called out prices, and birds sang near the fountains. But Rian's mind was not at ease. He had seen the broadcasts. He knew Veyra wouldn't stay quiet for long. His comlink buzzed with a message from command. "You may be in danger, Captain. We intercepted bounty talk from her." Rian asked, already knowing the answer. "Yes, she's furious and she's hunting." Rian didn't flinch. "I'm ready," he said, and turned back toward his ship. But even he didn't know how far Veyra would go, on the edge of a burning moon called Talaroon. A mercenary leader received her payment. He looked at the hologram of Rian, then smiled with rotten teeth. "This human must be special," he said. To make a queen fall this hard, a plan was set. Rian's next diplomatic stop was a small neutral zone near the Black Nebula. Perfect place for an ambush. No laws, no questions, no rescue. Days later, Rian arrived at the meeting, but something felt off. The officials were late. The station was half empty. He scanned the room with careful eyes. Then he saw its shadows moving behind tinted glass. Weapons, not tools. Predators, not diplomats. He moved fast, ducking behind a table as the first shot fired. Energy blasts hit walls. Glass shattered. Alarms screamed. But Rian didn't panic. He had trained for this. He fought through narrow corridors. His mind sharp, his body faster. Each move was planned, every breath timed. The mercenaries weren't ready for how hard a human could hit by the time backup arrived. 3 attackers were unconscious, 2 were tied up, and Rian stood unharmed. Holding a data stick from one of their pockets, he played the message, and her voice filled the room. Veyra, whispering, "Bring him to me," she said. I want to see his face when he realizes what it's like to lose. Rian stared at the recording, then closed his eyes. He wasn't angry. Not really. He understood her rage, her pain, her shame. But he also knew she would never stop. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was something deeper, something personal. He had broken her armor, the invisible armor of pride, control, and power. And now, she wanted to break him in return, but he wouldn't run. He had faced death before. This time, it would face something worse. An enemy who knew him. An enemy who carried his child. An enemy whose fury burned like a star. And somewhere deep inside, Rian knew. This was far from over. This was only the middle of their story. The stars passed slowly outside the window of the small shuttle. Captain Rian sat alone, staring into space. His mind was calm, but his body remained tense. He had escaped Veyra's trap once, but he knew it would not be the last. The bounty was still active, and now the price had doubled. Every hunter, smuggler, an outlaw with a ship and a gun wanted a piece of him. Veyra's name wasn't attached to the contract anymore, but the trail led back to her every time. Rian's ship, the Emberlight, was fast, silent, and armed, but even it couldn't outrun. Betrayal, he didn't travel with escorts, didn't hide in Earth's safety. He moved through the galaxy like a shadow, trying to finish his mission. But now, his mission wasn't just diplomacy, it was survival. At a quiet refueling station on the edge of the Varthex belt, he landed for supplies. The station was old, half abandoned, surrounded by floating junk and rusted towers. Perfect for a quick stop or an ambush. Rian walked through the dusty hall, buying rations and fuel. The shopkeeper, a three-eyed alien with a broken jaw, glanced at him too long. Rian noticed but said nothing as he turned to leave. He saw a blinking red light behind the counter, a silent alert. He moved fast, not even running, just quick enough to vanish into the side halls. Within minutes, 4 bounty hunters entered the station. 1 tall and scaly, 2 with metal arms, and 1 small and quiet, always the most dangerous kind. They searched every corridor, scanning faces, scanning heat signatures. But Rian had already slipped into the vent tunnels. He had memorized the station's layout within 10 minutes of arriving. That's what years of war taught him: never trust peace. By the time they found the storage deck, Rian was waiting. The first hunter fell with a hit to the throat. The second was blinded by a flare bomb tossed underfoot. The third got close, but not close enough, and the small one tried to run, but Rian caught her by the collar. He looked into her eyes and said one word: Veyra. The girl shook her head, terrified. No, I was just paid to mark your location. Rian let her go, but not without grabbing her device. It was linked to a master contact, encrypted of course, but not enough to stop him. Back in his ship, he decrypted the signal. And there it was, the voice he knew too well. Veyra, speaking to a group of hunters. This is not just a job, she said. This is personal. I want him alive, not damaged. Bring him to me. And your names will be remembered. Rian sat back, thinking she was obsessed. Not just angry, but focused. She didn't want to kill him. She wanted to face him, talk to him, maybe punish him, maybe something else. Something she hadn't even admitted to herself yet. He closed the message, set his course, and whispered to himself, time to stop running. He didn't head toward Earth or any safe zone. He flew straight toward the old moon of Dalrus 9, a ruined place filled with old battlefields and empty buildings. A place where no law existed, but Rian remembered the terrain. It was where he had fought his first battle years ago. He landed under the cover of night, hid his ship beneath a collapsed tower. Then waited. Hours passed, then days, and then they came. Not bounty hunters this time, but Ulari soldiers in civilian armor. Trained, silent, deadly. Veyra had sent her personal guards now. She was done playing games. They moved through the ruins, scanning for signs. But Rian had left a message instead, a single beacon blinking on a stone wall. When they touched it, a voice played. "You're getting close," it said, "but so am I." The soldiers spun around, but saw nothing. One by one, they were taken. Down by traps, smoke bombs, and ambush strikes. Not killed, just knocked out. Rian didn't want war. He wanted to send a message, and he did. He left all of them tied together at the moon's center, a data chip in one of their hands, inside. It was a message for Veyra. "If you want to talk, then come yourself." Rian's voice said, "No more hunters, no more games. You want me. Then face me." He launched the signal straight to her personal channel. And somewhere, across the stars, Veyra opened it with trembling hands. Her eyes narrowed, and her lips curled into a dangerous smile. "So, the hunter wants to be hunted now," she whispered. "Good." She stood from her chair, her robe flowing behind her like fire. "Prepare my ship," she told her crew. "I'm going to Dalros 9, and thus." Their paths crossed again, not by accident, not by fate, but by choice. One was ready for answers, the other was ready for war. And above them, the stars watched quietly, waiting to see what would happen when pride, revenge, and something deeper finally collided. The moon of Dalros 9 was silent, covered in ash and ruins. Once, this place had seen war, explosions, and screams. Now it only heard the wind, but that silence was about to end. Rian stood near a broken wall, watching the sky through a cracked visor. His ship was hidden, his escape plan was ready. But he didn't want to run, not this time. He came here for a reason, to finish what had started with a drink, a night, and a trap. He heard the hum of engines before he saw the ship. Smooth, silver, Ulari, designed fast and sharp like a knife. It landed quietly, and the door opened with a hiss. From the shadows stepped Veyra. She wore battle robes, this time not soft silks, but armor wrapped in cloth. Her hair was tied back, her face serious, eyes glowing like stars. No guards, no soldiers, just her. She wanted this meeting to be personal, and it was. They faced each other. Two figures in the middle of broken stone and dead metal. No words came for a while. Just the sound of old dust moving between them. Then she spoke. "You sent me a message," she said, voice low. "I didn't expect you to come yourself." Rian replied, "I needed to look into your eyes," she said, "when I ask you why." Rian didn't look away. "You mocked humanity," he said. "You called us breeders, weak, foolish. You laughed in front of the galaxy and thought you'd walk away with respect." "I was doing my job," she said coldly. "You insulted my species," he said, "so I gave you a memory that would last longer than words." Veyra stepped closer, her boots crunching the dirt. "You used me," she said. "You knew what would happen. I knew what could happen." Rian corrected, "But I didn't force it." She stood still, breathing hard. "Now I carry your child," she said, her voice almost shaking. "A child that shouldn't exist." Rian's face softened just a little. "It's not a weapon," he said. "It's life." Veyra's hands clenched into fists. "I lost everything, my title, my rank, my honor." "And I never asked for that," Rian said. "You lost control, not because of me, but because your people couldn't accept truth." "What truth?" she hissed. "That we're not better than you? That our blood is not pure? That a human could make me feel?" She stopped herself, eyes wide, mouth shut, but it was too late. The words had almost escaped. Rian stepped closer now. "Feel what, Veyra?" he asked quietly. She turned away, as if burned by the question. But her voice broke the silence, softer than before. "I hated you," she said, Still do, maybe, but you didn't treat me like I expected. Rian nodded slowly. You thought I would beg, bow, or break, and instead you smiled and gave me everything I thought I was controlling. She said bitterly, I didn't come here to win, Rian. Said I came here to stop the war, and look where we are now, she said, touching her belly. You started a different kind of war inside me. They stood again in silence, and then something strange happened. Veyra sat down on a rock, tired, breathing deep. I haven't slept in 2 days, she whispered. Everywhere I go, I hear whispers. Some call me weak, others call me the future. Rian sat across from her, not too close. I didn't know it would go this far, he said, but now it has. She looked at him again, really looked. You don't seem proud, she said. I'm not, he answered. I'm just ready to face whatever comes next. Veyra placed a hand on her stomach. Her voice dropped, soft and unsure. What do we even do now? Rian leaned forward. We raise a child, he said. Not for power, not for revenge, but for hope. Veyra laughed softly, not mocking this time, but tired. A child of 2 enemies, she said. Maybe that's exactly what this galaxy needs, Rian replied. She nodded, slowly, and for the first time, there was no anger in her face. Only thought, only silence, only the sound of broken pride turning into something new, something human. As the twin moons of Dal Rusneen rose into the sky, 2 former enemies sat side by side. Not lovers, not allies yet, but not strangers anymore. They didn't solve everything that night, but something changed. Not in politics, not in war rooms, but in their hearts, and sometimes that's where peace begins. The battle started without warning. The sky above Dalrus 9 turned red as enemy ships dropped from warp. Not Ulari, not Earth forces, but a third faction. Rogues, pirates, exiles from both sides, drawn by the bounty and the rumor of a human and Ulari diplomat hiding together. Rian and Veyra stood back to back in the ruined city center. She had her Ulari plasma blade, glowing green, in her hand. He held a pulse rifle pulled from his ship's locker. They had no time for questions, no time for old pain, only survival. Explosions shook the ground as the first wave of attackers landed, screaming through the dust, half-armored, wild-eyed. Some wanted Rian for money. Others wanted Veyra for power, and a few just wanted blood. The 2 fought with skill born from war and pride. Veyra moved like fire, slicing through attackers with sharp, graceful strikes. Rian moved with cold precision. Each shot perfect, each step planned. They didn't talk, they didn't need to. Their movements were synced, their eyes always checking for the other. By the end of the 3rd wave, the attackers hesitated. Half their force was gone. 2 enemies once from opposite sides stood as one, and it terrified them. Veyra's breathing was heavy, but her stance was still strong. She looked at Rian, dust in her hair, fire in her eyes. Still think I'm arrogant? She asked. Rian smiled through the smoke. Only when you're not saving my life. A final ship descended, larger, louder, heavily armed, its side cannons powered up, aiming right at the ruins. Rian's face changed. That one's going too. Flatten this whole place, he said. Veyra looked at her blade power cell drained. Then she looked at him. I have a plan, she said, but it's crazy. Then it's probably going to work, he replied. They ran together toward a fallen tower. Inside, Rian opened his wrist control panel. Linked to the ember light, still hidden below ground, he typed fast, voice shaking. Ship, initiate auto-launch. Target override lock on that cruiser. You're going to crash your ship. Veyra asked. Just the old shell, Rian said. Hi. Rebuilt it with a decoy core. It'll look like we're inside. Seconds later, the ground rumbled. The ember light rose from hiding, flying toward the pirate cruiser. The enemy ship, locked. On but too late, the decoy exploded near the reactor port, and a blinding light filled the sky. When it cleared, the pirate ship was falling apart. Flames and debris rained over the valley. The rest of the attackers fled in panic. Silence returned. Rian and Veyra stood on the broken tower, watching smoke rise into the stars. He turned to her. "Looks like we're still alive for now," she said, sitting down. "But they'll keep coming. They always do," Rian said, sitting beside her. "But we'll be ready." She looked down at her stomach. The child was still safe. She could feel it, a strange warmth that wasn't from fear or anger, but something else. "What do we call it?" she asked. Rian blinked. "Surprised? I thought you'd want to raise it alone. I tried being alone," she said quietly. "It didn't work. Besides, if this child is part of both of us, it needs both of us." Rian nodded slowly. "We'll name it something that fits both our worlds," he said. "A name that doesn't bow to Earth or Ulari, but stands between." She smiled, not her usual sharp grin, but something softer. "Honest, rare. I never thought I'd say this," she whispered. "But maybe." We needed each other. Rian didn't answer right away. He looked up at the sky, now calm. The stars didn't judge, didn't care about bloodlines. They just shined. "Maybe the galaxy needs this child," he said, "a mix of war and peace." Pride and pain, they sat quietly for a long time. Enemies once, allies now. Connected not by politics, but by something deeper. Back on Earth and in Ulari space, messages began to spread. The attack on Dalraz 9 had failed. The human captain and the fallen diplomat had survived, and, more importantly, had not killed each other. They fought together, saved each other. Rumors became hope. Hope became talk. And somewhere, quietly, powerful leaders began to wonder, could peace come from this strange bond? Could a child born from hate become a symbol of unity? No one knew for sure. But the story had already begun. A child of two worlds, an heir to both pain and possibility. And as long as Veyra and Rian stood together, the galaxy would keep watching. Not for war this time, but for something new, something dangerous, something beautiful.